good evening, actually good morning for you, Ayya Anandabodhi. Here, yeah, now I can find you in the little square. I was just wondering where. So you're sitting here on my left side of the screen, and you may be sitting for others on somewhere else on the screen, as I noticed. So very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here, and it's also wonderful to see everyone here. I'm just going through the two sheets just to see and get a sense of who's here. And if I could possibly invite the people who are have disabled the video, if you would like to show yourself for a moment, so then also Ayya Anandabodhi can see everyone, at least having the full spectrum of everyone present. And so I can already see, so we have some people also from the US. So Ayya Anandabodhi, you are in good company. I can see people from, yes, from the middle of the US. I can also see from California, we've got some people, and also just checking around. So we have also from here in Europe, some of you have been coming regularly. There is from the Netherlands, from Belgium, from nearby the monastery in Angers, from Tilorien Monastery. Then I can also see people from Vienna in Austria, and also people from the UK, I believe. Also from Germany, quite a number from Germany. And yes, and also, yeah, actually I can see Matty, Shirley, you are from the UK, yes.
Hello, Matty, Shirley.
Nice to see you. And also some people are here from Groningen, which is basically the center I'm staying and here at the moment and actually hosting this meeting from. So what you see in the background, Ayya, and also for everybody joining for first time, is the shrine of this wonderful meditation center in Groningen, which is in the north of the Netherlands, and where the local Sangha is hosting me. So some of the local Sangha actually are also present. So that's wonderful to see. And I see also Upasika Tara from the US, and nice to see. So our monastic friends particularly want to welcome. And before I hand over to you, I would just like to introduce you to everyone, especially to the ones who may not be familiar with you, but I think quite a number here have already come across you in different contexts. So Ayya Anandabodhi first encountered Buddhism and the practice of meditation actually in her early teens. That goes now quite...
Not meditation, Buddhism, but it took me 7 years actually to find someone to teach me to meditate.
Okay, so it was, okay. So it was the
long wait.
And then the meditation, and that actually has made you curious and actually inclined to the path of awakening, which actually then led you to take up first your first ordination and at Amaravati Monastery outside of London, and also at Chithurst Monastery, and that was in 1992, where you actually stayed, practiced and trained for quite, well, actually nearly 20 years, until 2009. And from there on, you went out together with, I believe, 2 other sisters or 3 to the US.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 others, yes.
2 others.
Ayya Santachita and Ajahn, we were Ajahns back then. Ajahn Santachita and Ajahn Metta, yes, we came together. And actually Jill Boone, who invited us to come, she's on the call today.
Oh.
So Jill, yeah, there she is. So Jill actually, without her, we wouldn't be here at all. So.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so there it's coming all together. So that took you to California, and subsequently you then established together with Ayya Santachita Aloka Vihara Training Monastery for Women, which is in the north of California, not too far away from Sacramento. And I had the wonderful opportunity and delight to visit Ayya Anandabodhi and Ayya Santatita, the nuns in the forest 2 years ago nearly, or was it a year ago? It was a wonderful, inspiring experience, because the monastery is literally located in the forest and there is wildlife, and every morning we could greet the deer coming by. So it's a wonderful setting, and I think you now celebrated 10 years of existence.
Altogether, yes. We were 4.5 years in San Francisco in a rented house, and then we've been here 5.5 years now. Yes. So 10 years in the US.
Yeah. So that's the 10th your anniversary of
Aloka Vihara.
Of Aloka Vihara.
Yeah. Aloka Vihara has been in 2 different locations, but it's landed here. Yes.
Landed, found its place in the forest. And so she then took full bhikkhuni ordination in 2011, and basically has become one of the representatives of the growing number of women receiving full ordination, and kind of bhikkhunis, which particularly is very strong in California, in the US generally. Yes, and so I would also see you very much like as part of this pioneering stream of bhikkhunis. And in 2016, you, maybe because of that, received the Global Bhikkhuni Award as well. So I'm very delighted that you are here with us and doing the session together with us, but particularly sharing the poems of the first 3 women, the first Buddhist women, which actually, as I understand, is one of the oldest collection of female literature, the Therigathas. And what you're going to read from and teach us from is the edition and the adaptation of the 3 women poems of Early Buddhist Nuns by Matty Weingast, which, if I just may mention, has been very much inspired by your encouragement and the encouragement by the sisters of Aloka Vihara, because Matty Weingast spent 4 months at the monastery at Aloka Vihara, and not only translating text to text, but as I understand, literally testing these verses and the wisdom which is included in those poems with the lived experience of yourself and the sisters.
That's true, and teaching Pali actually to the community here at the same time. Yes.
So there was a mutual cross-fertilization process.
Yeah, it's very, very fruitful.
So I'm very happy to welcome you here, and particularly with these poems which I came across 4 months ago, at least this edition, and I have to say they made a huge impact on my practice as they did on yours, and I believe in the practice of many others. And since then I have just gone around wherever I was and sharing those poems because they're so powerful. So I'm very much looking forward to hear from you and receive the teachings. And I think I'm now handing over to you. And
thank you so much, Anupama. And yeah, it's lovely to see you again, and glad that you have a good place to stay during this lockdown. And so I'm just going to show you the book. It's got little bookmarks, but this is the book, if you haven't seen it yet, that I'm going to be speaking from. And there are many translations of this book, so I'm just going to show you this, then we'll go into meditation too. So this is another translation of the same text, which is a little bit more formal. And this is a lovely one by Susan Murcott. And this she gives a little bit more background to the nuns in their lives, but she doesn't use all of the 73 poems. So there are various different translations, and what's lovely about this book is it sort of leads you in, and then I found many people read this and then they want to look at more, and they're like, oh, well, who were these nuns and what were they doing? And because for a long time, because the history has been passed down through a male lineage, the women have been forgotten to a large degree, and we might be familiar with that in other contexts. And so this is a time when where the not only are women getting an opportunity to take full ordination in the Theravada tradition, which has been not possible for over 900 years. You know, very, very few people have been able to do it, and that's coming back. But also the voices of these early awakened nuns are kind of coming back. So through these poems and through various different books and teachings I'm coming across now, there's more interest in them, and so it's like those forgotten voices are being heard again. So I'm very happy to be able to share some of those with you. And I think I'd like to start with some time of meditation, so we can settle our minds. So find a posture that's comfortable enough, not too comfortable. Sofas are not the best places for meditation. And just be aware of the weight of your body as you sit. And let yourself rest into this seat right here. And be aware of the support beneath you, the ground beneath you. Be aware of the space above and around you. And just notice if there's any kind of tightening or making yourself smaller. You don't need to. There's room for you. You can take the full space. Take a nice deep breath and then let go. And just allowing your breath to breathe naturally. Just letting go of any tension that might be held that you don't need to be holding right now. And just checking in, seeing how are you. Sometimes we keep busy and distracted. We don't really know how we're doing, what's motivating us. So just allowing your attention to drop down into your heart space. Just see, how are you? How is the heart right now? I'd just like to invite you to breathe in a sense of kindness, well-being into your heart space. Not trying to make your heart pump out metta, may not be ready for that, but taking in a sense of kindness and acceptance, friendliness. As you breathe out, just letting go of anything you don't need to hold on to. Not forcing, not pushing, just inviting any tension or any holding to just let go. So if you found that life has been difficult, challenging, you might need to just stay with this practice for some time. Breathing in a sense of well-being, and breathing out, just letting go of any tension, any tightness in the heart, in the body, in the mind. And if you feel that your heart is full enough, then you can breathe in the sense of metta, well-being, and breathe out, sharing that metta, letting it radiate out from your heart center, going through your body and being available, going out for the benefit of all beings. Just like a sphere, like a little sun in the heart, radiating in all directions. You just let the warmth and light of that metta glow and spread and warm your being and other beings. And you don't have to put any limits on it. You don't have to be afraid that it shouldn't be too big, or you can just let it go as far as it wants to go. Might be just a little way, it might be out into the cosmos. Just know how it is for you. And however it is, that's just perfect. That's just how it is right now. So it's an interesting process for me with these poems. So they've been very much part of my life for the last year and a half, and have been a very big influence in my practice. Like, as Ayya Anandabodhi was saying in her own practice, they kind of speak very deeply. And I've read many different translations and have not had that experience. But with these, what Matty did was go to the Pali, the original poems in Pali, and kind of get to know the person, get to know the nun in a sort of a way, and what she was saying, and then reform the poems in a more contemporary voice. And having looked through these poems and also some of the other more literal translations, it's quite extraordinary what he was able to do. Is really keeping the essence of each poem very, very authentically, and yet speaking in a way that, at least for me, speaks straight to my heart. So, and I always mark lots of poems, and then when I'm sitting in front of people, I often think, oh no, I should do this, I should do this. So you might have to wait now and again while I look for the one I want to read. And just sitting there together with everyone, I felt I wanted to read this poem, Metta. Metta means friend. So metta, we were just doing a little metta meditation. Metta, the Pali word metta comes from the same root as mitta. So it's often translated as loving kindness, metta, but really it's more about friendliness. It's about being friendly and being unconditionally friendly. And I love that that word, friendliness, rather than, loving kindness is beautiful, but we can't always get there, And friendliness, we can be friendly to, when we have a good friend, they're still our friend, even if things are difficult, even if they're being silly, even if they're doing things we wish they wouldn't do. They still remain our friend. They're not our friend because they're perfect. And so that quality of metta that is in metta, it's like we bring metta to everything, not because it's the way we want it to be or people are the way that we want them to be, but because why not? Because befriending is better than having enemies. So this is a very sweet poem by Bhikkhuni Metta. Full of trust you left home and soon learned to walk the path, making yourself a friend to everyone and making everyone a friend. When the whole world is your friend, fear will find no place to call home. And when you make your mind your friend, you'll know what trust really means. Listen, I have followed this path of friendship to its end, and I can say with absolute certainty, it will lead you home. So I'm going to read that once more. Full of trust you left home, and soon learned to walk the path, making yourself a friend to everyone, and making everyone a friend. When the whole world is your friend, fear will find no place to call home. And when you make the mind your friend, you'll know what trust really means. Listen, I have followed this path of friendship to its end, and I can say with absolute certainty, it will lead you home. So these nuns, pretty much all of them are arahants, fully enlightened. And so, when she's saying full of trust, you left home, she's speaking about going forth, as a monastic actually. But it's also about leaving what is familiar, what is known. So going forth, in a way, any of us on a spiritual path, we have to go forth many times out of our comfort zone, out of what's known, into something unknown. And it takes a certain faith to do that. It takes a certain confidence, a little bit of confidence in that following the spiritual path makes more sense than what we've been doing before, or taking this extra step into the path is better than holding on to what we know. So full of trust, you left home and soon learned to walk the path, making yourself a friend to everyone and making everyone a friend. I think Ayya Anandabodhi was recently doing this on Tudong, isn't it? Walking out into the world. When the whole world is your friend, fear will find no place to call home. So when we practice metta, it's a very powerful practice. The Brahma Viharas are a very powerful practice. And that if you look through the suttas, the Buddha mentions them again and again and again and again. They come up frequently. And, when we practice metta, we're radiating, we're generating in our heart center, not thinking about it, not just having phrases that we're repeating in our head. That doesn't, it's better than having unwholesome thoughts, but it's not really generating the quality of metta. It's an energy field. So when we come into the heart center and start to invite that quality to arise, it might be that we want to have an image of someone, or think of someone or something or somewhere that brings up that quality of metta. And then we let that be like the ignition, what lights that little spark in the heart, and then we let it grow. And I find feeding it with the breath, like the in-breath is bringing more oxygen and more fuel to that quality, and then with the out-breath letting it go, letting it spread. So you can let it spread through the whole of your body and mind, and then let it keep going out. And it can go out literally, covering the whole world as it is, with corruption, with greed, with war, with newborn babies, with forests, with burning forests, all of it. So the metta goes out for everything. And they say, Buddha says, just like the sun shines on all things, so metta is radiating for the benefit of all beings, not just the ones we like. And then when we develop this quality, fear can find no place to call home. So fear has the opposite movement to metta. Fear is contracting. It's always about me. It's about me and what's going to happen, or it's about someone I love and I want them to be safe. And there's this contraction, and then there's this tightening and an agitation, and then the mind gets agitated and the body gets agitated, and then it gets difficult to rest, and then it kind of gets into this perpetual cycle. So when you practice metta, it's literally, it kind of blows fear away. There's no room. It's impossible to have metta and fear, unless you're having metta for the fear. That's possible, actually. You can experience fear and have a sense of kindliness towards the fear. But if once you start to generate in your heart the quality of metta and let it radiate out, there can't simultaneously be that contraction of fear. So it's quite remarkable sometimes if you can go there. If there starts to get this sense of anxiety, worry, and then you go there to the heart with a kindly attention, not judging, not criticizing, not trying to get rid of, but with a kindly attention. And then you're like, oh, fear. Oh yeah, it's hard being with that one. And so not in a kind of combating way, but in a friendly way, it's like liberating that fear. It doesn't have to be stuck there. It's an energy. So instead you bring to it a quality of metta, of friendliness, of kindness, of soothing, and then strengthen that quality until the heart is filled with that quality of metta, and then just let it keep radiating out like a sphere in all directions. And if we keep cultivating this practice, and you generate a strong energy field of metta, that it's not that you have to have, I really dislike that person, but I should have metta for them. It's not like that. It's just like you're generating metta here in your own being, And then the thought of that person arises, and it lands in that metta field. And maybe the field gets shaken up for a while, and then keep working at it, and then it starts to transform. Or maybe you're with somebody who's, in lockdown, with somebody who you're finding very difficult, or who maybe, or maybe yourself. Maybe you're finding it difficult to be with yourself in lockdown. And, none of us are perfect. We are all perfectly imperfect. So, if we can focus on what's wrong and what should be different and what's annoying, or we can focus on where are the triggers, where's the judgment, and can that be transformed? So, but definitely towards oneself. So important to practice metta. People can be such hard judges on themselves, and so to cut yourself some slack, not in a lazy way. I don't mean being lazy, but just be friendly. Be friendly to yourself. Befriend yourself. We have to. This is one of my motivations for to learn to meditate, actually, or to not to learn but to deepen it. So I was interested to learn to meditate since I was 14, and then it took me 7 years to find somebody who could teach me. I was out in the sticks, and then once I started, what I realized was I really need to befriend this mind, because I realized that there was a lot of criticism, a lot of judgment, a lot of harshness towards myself, and also towards others, but it would always do to this one first, and then when it'd run out of things here, then it would start looking out there, and so I realized, well, I live with this one all the time. This is the one I'm living with all the time, and if I can't befriend this one, then I'm really in trouble. So I did a very intensive, 1 year practicing metta only, and I did it only for myself for a year. It sounds kind of selfish, but it was actually kind of wise, I think. So just to transform this heart to a point that it has enough, it's well enough, it's healed enough, and it can share that quality of metta with others. So if you try to jump too quickly from the work you're doing inside to trying to radiate loving kindness for all beings, then we can just sort of trip over ourselves and collapse and then give up and feel it's hopeless. And so you have to, there has to be something here within ourselves. We have to cultivate internally before we have something good to share externally. So it's not selfish, and it's not wasted. But at some point, then you can, if you keep checking in, then you can feel like the heart is ready. It's ready to. It's got enough in there. It wants to let it radiate out further. Yeah. And she says, I have followed this path of friendship to its end, and I can say with absolute certainty, it will lead you home. So it's debatable. Some people say that you can't become fully enlightened through practicing metta and the Brahma Viharas, and some people say it can lead to full liberation if you allow it to move into emptiness. I'm not going to get into emptiness now, but anyway, it can take you a very long way on the path. And a lot of the work is, transforming the stories of self and other, and befriending and letting go. And sometimes it can take a while. Don't be in a hurry, and don't be demanding about it. It can take a while. And so our work is to put in the practice and to keep going. We've all been touched by the Dhamma in some way. That's why we're here and listening to, practicing together. And so our work is to take care of that, and to not forget for too long. Sometimes we do forget for a little while, but not let that forgetfulness happen for too long, and to nurture and take care of our spiritual practice. But it's not really our business when it bears fruit. That we don't know. So that leads me to this poem of Dhammadina. she who has given herself to the Dhamma. So Dhammadina is another enlightened nun, and she was known as being foremost in teaching Dhamma. She was a brilliant Dhamma teacher. Unfortunately, we only have one of her suttas, that one teaching of hers passed down in the scriptures, but she was known for being a brilliant teacher. So this is about her path to awakening. For so long, I thought only of the river's end. Then, one morning, I set my paddle down to watch the sun rise over the eastern hills, only to find myself floating somehow, gently upstream. I promise, it was not what I had expected. So I'm going to read that again. I'm sorry if there's banging in the background. Anagarika, Janice is making the meal for the Sangha, so it's morning here. So if you hear any noises, it's wholesome noise. For so long, I thought only of the river's end. Then, one morning, I set my paddle down to watch the sun rise over the eastern hills, only to find myself floating somehow, gently upstream. I promise, it was not what I had expected. So I find this a very, very brilliant poem. This is about right effort. This is about this combination of, so there she is. It has the image of, of her, on a river in a paddle. What do you have a paddle? I guess it's a canoe or a kayak. And not that she necessarily was in a kayak. This is imagery, poetic license. But it's like the river is the long journey, the spiritual journey, and then she's working hard. She's paddling and paddling and paddling and paddling. Actually, Jill Boone, who I mentioned in the beginning, who's on the call here, we did a kayaking retreat once together. And on this retreat, you're just like, you got the paddles and you're just working. You've got to keep up with everybody, and it can be really hard work, and you've got to use all your muscles, and it's like, if you stop, then the water starts to take you in a different direction, so you just got to keep going. It's actually a great retreat as well. But so there's this image of like this bhikkhuni who's working really hard in her practice, and just thinking about the river's end, which is like awakening. Practicing, and just waiting for that moment of awakening. And then one day she leans back a little. She puts her paddle down. She enjoys the beauty of the sunrise. And then the river takes her upstream. So this is like she becomes awakened, enlightened. It's a beautiful image, and it's like that, the path. If we don't put in effort, we don't get anywhere. We just drift around, and we had that experience too, actually, on this kayaking retreat, where there was a group of us that was being led by somebody who was very experienced, and at one point we were invited to just sit. There were two in a kayak, so Jill and I together in the kayak, and we were invited to just sit and take our paddles out of the water and just meditate with our eyes closed. And so, we started all close together, and then the boat, the kayaks, and then we meditate, and gradually you just drift and you drift away, and physically. The sea takes you where it wants to take you, and it's like in our practice, if we're just sort of sitting there, not really applying our mind, so I'm not talking about meditation. It's that's like the paddle. If we're just sitting and letting the mind wander wherever it wants to go, then then we start to just the whatever current is present, it will take us. So if we're feeling drowsy, we'll drift into drowsiness, or if we're feeling aversive, then we'll drift into a story of ill will. Or if we're feeling afraid, then we'll drift into tighter fear. So you need to put in the practice. You need to actually take care of the mind and guide the mind, and have a regular practice. It also makes a huge difference. If we just do bits and pieces here and there, it's definitely better than not doing anything. But if you have a regular practice, it builds up. It gets some momentum. It gets some strength going. Just as actually with the kayaking, in the beginning it's like really hard work, and then over time your body gets used to it. You get stronger, and the muscles that you need for those particular moments get stronger. So it's the same with our practice. If we keep it up, regularly, then our mindfulness attention gets stronger. And then there's the letting go. So, she's efforting and efforting. She's like putting in more and more effort, diligence, focus, one-pointedness. And then at some point she's like, no end in sight. There's no end in sight. She can't see the moment of liberation, so she just leans back and just enjoys the moment, watches that sunrise. And it's in that moment that the mind is released. So we never know when that moment might be, and you might think, oh, I don't even practice for those, I don't even think about getting enlightened, all that stuff. Or you might be very, very interested in that. And like Dhammadina, wondering, when is it coming? When is it coming? When is it coming? So that part isn't our business. What is our business is to take care of the mind, to guide the mind, and to bring awareness to whatever is happening right now. So if we let the hindrances, sensual desire, ill will, sleepiness and dullness, restlessness and agitation, and doubt, those 5 hindrances, if we let them just take the mind over, if we let our attention rest on them, they will get stronger and stronger, and more believable, and more the sense of self will get stronger and stronger. So you don't want to just let the mind wander where it wants, because it doesn't always go where we need it to go. And so it's guiding the mind, taking care of the mind. This is our work. This is what we can do. We can know when there's fear present and take care of that, and then start to generate this sense of metta. Or we can know when when the mind is just lost in sensual desire, and then, okay, just give something up. Give something up. Or when there's a tightening around ill will. Again, metta is very helpful. It can be also a very lovely practice, actually, if you have a strong sense of aversion towards someone, including yourself, actually, but towards another, or towards yourself, or both. Working with the 4 elements is a very interesting practice. So you see, this body is made of earth. There's earth element, the bones, the teeth, there's hair. There's like earth element. It comes from when we eat, fruits and vegetables and beans and so on that have come from the earth, and then we take them into our body, and that literally builds our body. And then also what we eliminate, that goes back to the earth. So we're part of the cycle of, there's earth here. We're part of just this cycle of nature. And then water, when we take a drink of water, we take it from, it comes from the sky, and then it goes down into the earth, and then it comes back up in springs, and then we're able to drink it, and then it goes into our body, and then that water element is part of us, so to speak, for a while. And then that gets eliminated too, that gets peed out, and then it goes back into the cycle. So we're just part of that cycle. And with heat, so coming into this room, I'm in the library of Aloka Vihara at the moment, and it's quite cold. It's the coldest room in the house. So it's like come in here, and then there's, oh, it's cold, so there's heat being drawn out of my body. And then have a cup of tea here that's nice and hot. Then I have a bit of tea. I get water and heat element going back into the body. And so heat, you know, is constantly, there's this constant exchange going on. And of course, air, you know, with the breath, every moment of every day, air element is going on. There's this exchange between what's here and what's going out. So we can reflect on, you know, this body is made of those four elements, And then everything else is made of those four elements. The computer that we're looking at, the floor that we're sitting on, you know, everything, the books in the room we're in or whatever, everything is made, and each other. We're all made of those four elements. So that can be also a practice when there's, you know, if you feel ill will towards somebody and then you think of them as, well, there's earth here and there's earth there, you can't get very excited about it. There's water here and there's water there. So what, you know? So it sort of simplifies everything, and it brings us back into alignment with reality. Because as a person, we want to, you know, we want to be respected, we want to be right, we want to be heard. There's the person that has a lot of wants. As the four elements, it's kind of nothing happening, is it? It's just doing its thing. It's just nature. So it's a way of reflecting that can bring great peace and letting go. And it's also kind of fun, you know, when you start to recognize those four elements. Like I say, now I have this tea, and instead of thinking this is my cup of tea and it comes from here and da, 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 it's just realizing water element and heat element. It's very peaceful. It's simple. And then I take it, and it's at the moment it's external. It's outside of myself. The Buddha always refers to the internal and external. So the external water element, external heat element. And now that's become internal. So, and you know, so then that's me. Is that me? Maybe it's me now. Is that tea just suddenly become me? Probably not. But we think like that. So it's kind of a fun thing to explore. Because you know, the sense of self is our main problem. This lovely practitioner, Anam Tupten, he wrote a book called No Self, No Problem. And that's kind of how it is. No self, no problem. You know, if we're not creating a self story, there's no problem. Everything's just what it is. So these are ways that we can explore the sense of self. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, this is a poem that I really love, and I haven't actually read it during the lockdown because I thought it might not go down well, but I kind of want to, so I'm going to. It's called Metta Kali, Friend of the Dark. And it's about the mind. I was always smart, so this is the American, smart meaning intelligent. I was always smart, but if the path was good, I figured it would make me even smarter. One night, while meditating, I watched my thoughts piling themselves up all around me. My mind built a house out of all those thoughts, then filled that house. Soon it was a whole city, a whole world. Oh, my beautiful, beautiful thoughts. Who will look after you after I'm gone? I swear I could weep. I could weep for all of you. My sisters, do you really want to be free? Are you ready to leave behind all your precious little houses and make your home everywhere? It's not as hard as you might think. First, stand up, then walk out the door. So I hesitated doing this during lockdown because you can't actually physically walk out the door, a lot of you. But it's about walking out the door of the little kind of box we make for ourselves, the little story of me and mine, me and my life, me and my history, me and my possibilities, me and my future. So I'm going to read that again. Metta Kali, friend of the dark. I was always smart. If the path was good, I figured it would make me even smarter. One night while meditating, I watched my thoughts piling themselves up around me. My mind built a house out of those thoughts, then filled that house. Soon it was a whole city, a whole world. Oh, my beautiful, beautiful thoughts. Who will look after you after I'm gone? I swear I could weep. I could weep for all of you. My sisters, do you really want to be free? Are you ready to leave behind all your precious little houses and make your home everywhere? It's not as hard as you might think. First, stand up, then walk out the door. So I don't know if you can relate to that, how the mind creates these houses, these stories, these worlds, and then they become so real. And then other people, become leading characters in our world, and it's very interesting how we can create each other actually. So I hope it's all right to say it, but I am, Ayya Anandabodhi and I, we have founded this monastery together. So we came over here 10 years ago, thanks to Jill Boone's invitation and the invitation of the Saranaluka Foundation. And we were good friends. We've known each other since 1992. And we were good friends when we lived in the monastery in England. And then when we came here, we found each other extremely difficult to get along with. So we've had 10 years of very, very, very difficult time. Very difficult, each of us equally finding the other one difficult. We've tried various things and got to a place of thinking, well, maybe we just have to work in different areas of the monastery so we don't have to work together because it's just too difficult. This is 10 years, and we've just come out of a winter retreat. So we have 3 months retreat every year, and that ended in the middle of April, so about a month ago or so. And what we found when we came out of this retreat was there was no problem, and we were both like, huh? you know, and the things that had been difficult were not difficult anymore. And the perceptions we had of each other, we started to realize, oh, they're not actually real. This person isn't the way I perceived them to be all these years. It was one of those, well, it was, I guess, a karmic thing, but, you know, one of those things where, because if you perceive somebody in a certain way, they start to arise in that way. And if you can and sometimes we can't let go of those perceptions, but if you can let go of those perceptions, then they're allowed to be what they actually are, which is often quite different from what we perceive them to be. So, and, you know, at first I thought, oh, maybe, and I think we both thought, oh, maybe it's just, you know, temporary, but no, something's ended. And so it's like we're getting to know each other now, after 10 years of living together, in a new way. So I think this is very similar to this poem, where we create these worlds, you know, we build, we construct realities in our minds. This is what we do. We can't help it, really. We construct these realities in our minds, and then we make them real. We're sure they're real, and this is how it is, and this person really is like that, or I really am like this, or, you know, it really should be that way, and or it's all going to be such and such a way. And the truth is, we don't really know. We don't really know. We don't really know how things are going to turn out. We don't really know what's going to happen in an hour's time. And that is, in some ways, that is one of the silver linings of this pandemic, because certainly the pandemic is a very serious and challenging and, you know, deadly for some people situation. And yet there are these silver linings also. And I think the fact that we're being forced to acknowledge uncertainty is a silver lining. It's not always comfortable, but it's real. It's true. And this is one of the things Ajahn Chah, who's like my spiritual grandfather, he would apparently, and I didn't know him personally, but he would say this frequently in the Thai language, mai nae, it's not sure, not sure. So people are, was it like this or like this? Not sure. Is this going to happen? Maybe, but not sure, you know. And so to develop that quality of being okay with not sure. And this, in the ending of that poem, it's where she says, it's not as hard as you might think. First stand up, then walk out the door. You know, when you stand up and walk out the door, you don't know what you're walking out into. This is what keeps us in the little confined stories, because it feels safer to be in our little story than to walk out into the unknown. But the unknown is real. It's always unknown. There is only the unknown. There can be the knowing of the present moment, that's it. There can be faith in the Dhamma, you know, but it's to not, and I don't want to encourage you to be to go into a state of doubt. That's not, or fear because it's unknown, but more a state of curiosity, of like, okay, I think I know this for sure. Do I know it for sure? Like that. Oh, this is like this. Oh, and what is this actually? You know, so it's like this sense of curiosity, and this is an awakening factor. It's one of the supports for awakening. To be present and to have curiosity, and to stay with the path. So I'm going to offer that today, this morning, tonight. And I think we've got about 15 minutes if people want, or maybe a little bit less if people would like to ask questions. Or
So, as Ayya Anandabodhi just said, thank you so much for sharing these wonderful poems, and particularly the way you take them and the interpretation you're offered. So we have the option for speaking or writing the question in a chat box. So whatever you prefer, so you can write message or a question in a chat box. If you would like to speak up and ask the question, you can, there is on the bottom line of your screen something called reactions, and then you can just press a reaction and then Amina will unmute you. But just to let you know, we are recording, and this will go up on Samita's website. So if you are choosing to speak up and will be unmuted, you also agree with that speaking that you will be recorded. So decide for yourself what you feel more comfortable with.
So can I just check, Venerable, has it all been recorded already?
It has been all recorded, yes.
It's all recorded, okay.
So we can also send it to Aloka Vihara on the website. And mainly, just in a moment when people may just make up their mind, one thing I would just want to say, to include, we had a few more newcomers in the meantime as you were speaking, and just to welcome people from Norway, from Poland, from France, from Spain, and Macau.
And Brazil. I know there's someone here from Brazil.
Oh, from Brazil, okay. Yeah. So just a second. So whenever you feel ready, raise your hand and Amina will unmute you or put something in the chat box.
Okay, very quiet. Venerable Anupama, you're muted.
Okay, so here is a comment. Thank you so much for such beautiful translation and teaching straight to the heart. Deep bow to you.
Okay. I didn't translate. I just want to be clear. I didn't translate the poems. I didn't write a single line of the poems, but I worked with Matty, who translated the poems. Yeah.
And then another comment. Just beautiful poems, touching, inspiring. Thank you. And another, hoping the names of the books and authors can be written in the chat box. Actually, it's in the announcement of this event on Samita's website. So you can actually even find a link to where the book can be found. So just if you go back on Samita's website. And
I did also show some different books, isn't it, as well?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But I think this one particularly that you might find interesting because it has stories of the nuns. I'm not going to type it in, I'm sorry. But somebody could do it if they wanted. This is very interesting, but it's not as beautiful. The poetry is different, but it's still good.
The First Buddhist Women by whom?
By Susan Murcott.
Okay.
Yes.
For anyone who is interested in that one.
You can look it up.
And then some other comments saying, I just want to thank you for reading these inspiring poems. They touched my heart. Well, I have a question.
Okay, please. Good.
I mean, as you said, you were involved in the process, in kind of the translation process, but also as you mentioned, I myself mentioned how these poems actually have impacted on our practice. And I would really be curious to hear, because obviously the Therigathas have been around for quite a while. What made it so specific about this translation and process which spoke to you, and in which way would you say have they impacted on your practice?
Thank you. Well, I might have said in the beginning, because as a Buddhist nun, the Therigatha is like these are the words of our awakened foremothers. It's the lineage holders, and is a very important text. But the translations, some of the early translations are very, very archaic. So you'd read, and it'd be like kind of chewing on a dry bone. And you know that there's some goodness in there somewhere, but it's really hard to get it out. And then over the years, I've hoped that I've waited for somebody to make a translation literally that would speak directly to my heart. That's what I was interested in. And from time to time, things have come out, and I thought, oh, maybe this one. And then it's like, no. Or maybe this one, no. And with Matty's, so it was still like a rough manuscript when I first saw the poems in the book. and it was about half finished, I would say. So all 73 poems had been translated, but in various degrees of finishedness, let's say, and completion. And some of the early poems were so beautiful and very, very clear, very similar to what they are now already in the book, that when I read those, I felt like, oh my goodness, this is not only speaks to my heart, but it's almost like a portal. It's almost like those nuns are here talking to me directly. It's almost like that. And then as I went through the book, some of the middle ones were sort of a little bit patchy, and then some of the ones towards the end were just like of a different quality altogether, not great. So I felt like this is a very, very important piece of work, and I need to make sure. It was almost like it came into me like, I need to make sure that this gets out there to people, this work, because it's very precious. And so I sat down with Matty for a couple of hours, and we went through on his laptop, line by line, pretty much through the poems, and this works, this doesn't work, this needs some change, and this you need to just throw it away and start again, and then I thought that was it, that was me done, and then he took that away and carried on working on them, and then I started to use them in teachings, the ones that were more finished or the ones that were nearly finished, and found that they were just very powerful, and they're speaking very deeply to people. And then Matty and I ended up having about a year where we were working together on Zoom. So he on the East Coast, me on the West Coast, and working on these poems. And I would do them like get up early in the morning and work on them, late at night work on them, because I had my duties here also. And that process itself was, there's so many, it's changed me in many different ways, actually. So the one thing is, the actual work was very delightful and joyous and healing in a kind of a way, working on the poems themselves. I'm not trained in anything like that, but it was in more of an intuitive relationship with the poems. And one of the things I really loved about the poems was that it was getting so clear that these women come from all walks of life. And there's also a Therigatha of poems by awakened monks, which I haven't looked into in any great depth, actually. But these women are all sorts of women, young and old and privileged and poor and princesses and prostitutes and wives and, women who enjoy sensuality, women who are like desperate to renounce. It's just like everyone's in there. And they're all arahants, they're all enlightened women, And so that to me was like, I kind of knew it before, but it really hit home. It's not about being a certain way. It's about taking what you are onto the path. The whole of what you are, taking that onto the path. And so it's been a process of for me, bringing in parts of myself. I don't want to go into too much detail, but bringing in parts of myself that maybe were sort of pushed out of the picture because it didn't really fit with this life that I have as a nun, as a senior nun. I'm still in the process of learning what that means. It's like it's just like resting more into how this being is. Not the idea of how I think I should be, or the idea of how I imagine an abbess or a leader of a community should be. I don't fit that role very well, model, but I'm like this. So it's like learning to be like this, and okay, what does this, and how does this manifest? How does this one manifest? And rather than trying to fit into some idea of how it should be, how I should be, what I should be doing. So that's a big part of it. And there's more, there's layers and layers, actually, there's quite a lot. But it is essentially just coming more directly into a relationship with how things are, rather than how I would like them to be, or how I imagine they should be, or that's the essential part of it. And and also just deepening that truth of our work is to practice, and to keep and to remain as authentic as possible in our practice. And then when the path ripens, it ripens.
Thank you, Ayya. In the meantime, I had the question, are you still fine to be with us for a moment?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, wonderful.
I see Emily. Emily has a question.
I can read it out to you. They're coming through to me. Very beautiful and inspiring poems. Thank you. There was resistance against women in the early times of Buddhism, I heard. They couldn't be ordained. How is the climate now, you feel?
It's not great. Yes, there's still resistance. It does depend a bit on who you talk to. You know, here in California, we're in a very good situation because culturally, people want to support equality and that women should have the same rights as men. So there's a strong sense of like that's just, of course it should be like that. You know, there's no question about it in terms of the American people. And I think in the UK where I lived before, it's more traditional and conservative. So okay, it's traditional for women to have a lower position, then that's what the tradition is. You just have to sort of make do with it. Whereas here, that's like, no, that's not okay. So that creates a good environment for us. And also the Sri Lankan Sangha, particularly the Sri Lankan Sangha who are in other countries, who are not in Sri Lanka. There are some in Sri Lanka, but also many Sri Lankan monks who you meet outside, like in America or in other countries. Very, very supportive of bhikkhunis. Wonderful, very kind, very supportive, very helpful. And so they're the ones who help us with ordinations and in quite a number of ways, actually. They're very heartful and they're very connected, and in terms of also sharing Dhamma, discussing Dhamma, and offering support, and study and all sorts of stuff. They're wonderful. So here is a very good environment, but most Theravada countries is not so easy. So Sri Lanka is the best actually for support for bhikkhunis, and it's still not. It's far from perfect. It's not officially recognised in any Theravada country, the full ordination for women. And Thailand is changing. So there's been a few big movers and shakers in Thailand, and so it's starting to change. Burma is illegal, so you can actually be forcibly disrobed, and as a bhikkhuni in Burma. So it's more. So you can go to Burma as a bhikkhuni, but you can't talk about being a bhikkhuni or behave like, you have to kind of pretend you don't have the full ordination. So it's a funny thing, it's a strange thing, and there are scholars who work very hard in clarifying that it is valid and it should be recognized, and it's basically it is misogyny that is keeping it out. And then there are others who are equally excellent scholars and excellent meditators, and there's quite equal in those qualities, who are adamant that it shouldn't happen and it's wrong and it goes against the discipline. So meanwhile we're just getting on with it. I keep my head down these days. I'm not really interested in getting into the fight. I'm a nun who wants to practice and awaken. And I don't see why there should be an issue. If what gender you are, it should not be a problem. But it is an issue. So we're fortunate to be in an environment where it doesn't have to be a daily challenge. Yeah.
Thank you. Are you still with us for a moment?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. So there is another question. What do you do when the inspiration and determination of these ancient nuns seems so distant?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it feels very immediate for me, actually, when I read those poems. But there certainly has been times in my practice where the inspiration has gone, and the possibilities of furtherance feel far, far away. So, and I remember one time in particular where I felt really just like on a plateau, and it's just like, just kind of drudging along, and because when I started practicing, I had a lot of inspiration. I mean, in the beginning with meditation, a lot of energy for practice, because I knew I had a lot of work to do, and I wanted to get on with it, internal work. And then, then that took me into the robes, and then I was in the monastery, and I was very, very happy to ordain, and so that I had a lot of good energy from that for some time. Then at some point, maybe actually about 10 years in, I just sort of landed on this plateau, and it's like nothing, and it went on for quite a while. And I remember speaking to Ajahn Sumedho about it, because I lived in Amravati at that time, and he was great. He said, oh yes, the plateau is actually really important. It's part of the practice. It's where you develop strength and skillful means. And then he said, think of it as desert practice. So you might have heard of the desert fathers, and just think of it as desert practice, that you're in a situation where it's barren, there's very little going on, and there's no stimulation, and this is your environment for awakening. So it's kind of about changing gears in a way. So there's times when there's a lot of inspiration, a lot of energy, and then there's times when there's really not. And there's times maybe we're falling into depression, or feeling lazy, or getting too distracted, or various things can happen. And then the important thing, what I feel is most important, is that you have a sense of, whether it's getting enlightened or just furthering yourself on the path, that you have a sense of furthering. There's a possibility to further on the path, to go further on the path in this lifetime. Excuse me. And whatever that it means to you, that might mean just like being a little bit less negative. It might mean letting go of fears, of particular fears. Excuse me. It might mean having a very significant breakthrough. Excuse me. But you have a sense of, you've stepped onto the path. You've already stepped onto the path, all of you. You've stepped onto the path, and you can get further along that path. So, sometimes we get sidetracked, or we lay down and sleep by the side of the road for a while, or, things happen. Excuse me. But you're not going to forget that you're actually on this path, and you're going in a particular direction, and you're going to keep going. And maybe you feel like, it's all just too much, and then you just rest for a while, and then you get up and you keep going. So I think to have that broad view is really important. That sense of, I don't want to say goal, because goal orientation isn't that helpful, but sense of direction, a sense of intention, aspiration is really important, and not to to think of it as a long-term project. Not to be in a hurry. If you're in a hurry, you sprint along and then you get tired, then you give up. But it's like, no, you just plod along. And from time to time, it's you might be able to like slide down a hill, or get to the top of a mountain and see the beautiful view. The path is like that from time to time. And then there's other times when you just have to just take another step, and that's perfect. So to have the broader view and to just keep going. And Bhikkhu Bodhi is quoted to have said that to realize the path, you need only two things. One is to start practicing, and the other one is not to stop. Don't give up. So you just start on the path, and then you just keep going.
Thank you so much, Ayya. I think this is actually maybe a good moment to stop the session, but actually not stopping our practice, and not stopping with the inspiration we have received this evening, and the inspiration we can receive from our own practice, as well as the practice of everyone coming here together, which is in itself, for me, and for many of us, I think, a great inspiration to do this together, in particular.
Yes.
And yes, Ayya, did you want to?
I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me, and for taking all of the doing all of the behind the scenes work to make it happen. Thank you, and also to Ayya Vimala.
Yeah, I would like to say, for the ones who are here for the first time, Ayya Vimala is actually behind the scenes, in the sense that she's on retreat for 2 months coming out at the beginning of June. But maybe also in the context which Ayya touched early on, the question of Bhikkhuni situation. Ayya Vimala has set up Tilorien Monastery without a break, basically, for the last 4 weeks, last 4 years. And this is the first time she's actually on retreat. So you don't see her. She would probably see her in the future, but just to taking that time to actually practice.
Absolutely.
And so that's why she can't be with us, but I'm sure she's here in spirit with us. And maybe also in this context, I would like to say, not are we only blessed to have Ayya Anandabodhi with us tonight, she's also the spiritual advisor of Tilorien Monastery. So in this sense, we have actually her direct input into how things are going at Tilorien Monastery, and very much in this spirit. And one of the things at Tilorien Monastery, and I understand also Aloka Vihara are very strong on, are actually on the diversity and inclusivity of everyone finding a place, and that means independent of gender, race, color, and sexual orientation.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, and these poems, they're referring to sister. They're all in the feminine, and because it's nuns talking to nuns, you know. But our monastery is also, it's a place for nuns, for female monastics. But we welcome all genders. All genders are welcome here. Yeah, and races and ages, everything. We welcome everyone, because the path is precious. You know, let's take care of it and take care of each other.
So I hear the bell in the background. That is your bell for lunch.
Yes.
So we shall let you go, and with a great thanks, and hopefully we can have you another time. And just for the ones of you who are following these weekly talks, we are still carrying on. And next Saturday, we've got Bante Uaga from the jungle life from the northeast of Thailand on lessons from the jungle, the freedom which comes from simple life.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
You're very welcome to join us.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Lovely to see you all. Take good care of your practice.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful evening and a wonderful day, and a very warm hello to the sisters at Aloka Vihara, to the
Thank you so much.
Nuns. Yeah.
Thank you.